Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So, welcome to another Saturday morning session on the summary of Srimad Bhagavatam. We are reading from Canto 3. Very interestingly, we have been doing a lot of technical classes leading up to today's class. We are in chapter 11, part 2. This chapter, basically, if you remember from part 1 and the previous canto, which was previous chapter, in chapter 10, we actually saw Vidura questioning Maitreya on the universal time. And that's how Maitreya's explanation leads to this chapter, which is basically calculation of time from the atom. Um, like, unlike the previous classes, rather, this class is a lot more, this particular chapter is a lot more something that we can connect and we can definitely see or understand things around us. So what I'll do is, before getting into the Srimad Bhagavatam shlokas, I thought I should probably spend a couple of minutes talking about some very famous stories that we already know from the time perspective within the universe, within a Brahmanda. Okay, this whole discussion so far, what we have seen, is all to do within one universe. By the end of today's session, we'll see how insignificant is that time duration. Okay, because when we start talking about the spiritual world, we have always heard that, you know what, there is no influence of time in the spiritual world. Correct, we have seen that. Is there no time in the spiritual world? No, there is time in the spiritual world. Obviously, Krishna does his Ashtakalya Leela, different 8 kalas of Leela. So we are all aware of it, or at least we should start looking at being aware of those things. So Krishna does eat, sleep, do different activities, wakes up in the morning, but there's no influence of time. Now, from that world that we have come, which is eternal, in that sense that there is no time's influence there, to this world where everything that we talk about is time sensitive. Correct? There is no conversation that we can do which does not have an influence of time unless it's a spiritual topic. So with that background, let's hear the most common, very famous pastime that we keep hearing during the Balram Purnima. How Lord Balram married Mother Revati. So all of us know this shloka, so I mean, pastime. So I'll keep it very, very short. So there was this very famous king, Raivata. He had a very beautiful daughter. He had 100 sons. So his daughter's name was Revati, and he said, this was in Satya Yuga, and he said, I want to marry the best suitable groom for my daughter. So he looked around. He collected a list of all the qualified warriors, kings in the list, and he said, I'm unable to decide. So let me do one thing. I will ask Lord Brahma himself, who is the most suited person. So he takes his daughter along. He goes and visits Lord Brahma. Brahma is a little busy with his work. After a few minutes, he comes and meets them. So after after due conversations, the king actually puts forward the list, saying that, "Hey, these are the most suitable grooms that I see for my daughter. Can you please suggest one of them so that she can get married?" Lord Brahma looks at it, gives a smile, and says, "You know what? You have spent a few minutes with me here, so these people do not exist anymore." The king is surprised. Says, "What should I be doing?" So he says, "Okay, without getting too much into the details, go there, and in the Yadukula, you have this lovely boy called Balaram. You go and get your daughter married to Lord Balaram." So they come back, rush back, and they understand that their dynasty, it's been thousands of years. So whatever the king was doing, his kingdom, the name, no one even remembers. So he comes back, he sees everything has changed. There has been a sea change in the entire status of earth. And then he meets Lord Balram, offers his daughter in marriage to Lord Balram, and the Haladara obviously looks at the girl. She's pretty tall, unlike what people in that yuga, in the Dwapar yuga are. So then he uses his hala, brings her down to his size, and then Mother Revati and Lord Balramji get married. we have heard this story, right? All of us know this story. It's pretty fascinating how a small visit to Brahmaji's planet and they come back and there's a huge change here. Okay, this is obviously from the Shastric perspective. Does material science also believe in it? Yes, of course. We see so many stories, so many movies based on the same concepts. Like so for devotees who ideally are not supposed to see movies, but have heard or seen movies like, let's say, recollect Interstellar, then you will see that they travel to a different planet, or they try to see if there's life on another planet, or humans can go there, and when they come back, every minute there is about 27 years here and so on. So these concepts are also there. I mean, Hollywood loves our Shastric movies, right? So I keep using it in my classes, saying that they take so many concepts from us and we are wowed about it. We are like, oh, this looks so nice, this looks so fascinating. At end of the day, it's something that's been there in our shastras for a long time, just that we didn't bother. So, going back to the story of Brahmaji, Lord Balramji, so there was a time difference. Okay, so this was across yugas, right? So Satya Yuga all the way to Dwapar Yuga. Much shorter story that also we remember. If you look at that story from Arjuna and the Pandavas, they are all in the Vanvas, 12 years of Vanvas, and they are all in the forest. And suddenly, you know what? Yudhishthira decides that Arjuna, you should probably visit Indra and get some heavenly weapons for yourself that can help us, because I see that the war is inevitable. It's going to happen. With all the consultation, Arjuna decides to go. So we know that story, not going into all the details. So he meets Lord Shiva, then he goes and spends some time with Indra. Indra asks him to stay back, and he says, no, no, my brothers are waiting. So Indra says, stay with me for a couple of days. And then Arjuna comes back after spending 4 days in the higher planetary system. When he comes back, we understand that there are 4 years that have passed by. Okay. So if you just go to the higher planetary systems and come back, then 4 years are gone. If you go to Brahmaji's planet and come back within some time, your yugas have gone. What does this really mean? So this whole concept of theory of relativity, that it's relative to where you are, how you are, or if you have heard this, if you go to space and come back, you might have lost a few minutes. You're shorter by a few minutes compared to the rest. That means you have grown. If you stay 1 year in the space and come back, your friends are probably grown 2, 3, 4 years. Okay, these are some things that we have read in our science during our younger days. Correct. So this is the background to what we have today when we talk about time duration. So today we'll basically talk about the different yugas, the times there, the manvantaras. We'll also see the duration of life of Brahma. We have already seen. So details are very few, and then we will try to conclude, which obviously is most important. Like I said in the beginning, all this time, overwhelming time duration, Brahmaji stays for 311 trillion 40 billion years in my lifetime. Uh, Here I'm struggling to think of about 40 years. You're talking about 311 trillion years. Okay. So how do I understand it, or how do I use it in my Krishna consciousness? So with this background, let's get into today's subject matter of Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's do the invocation prayers. You can all do it at your end. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramanandavadam. Hare Krishna. I'm sharing my screen. So far in the first half, let's just look at the summary. Sorry, let me just reshare. Let's look at the summary from Shubodini. This usually helps for us to understand quickly. Closing a few windows. Okay. So we are in Canto 3, the status quo. We have discussed it many times, so I'll not go into the details of status quo. Chapter 11, calculation of time from the atom, from the smallest of elements. Okay, so in the last class, we saw time also has small and big divisions. So we spoke about what is anu, paramanu, and then anu, and so on. Then we came to what is nimisha, what are the different duration that we commonly use, right? So uh, we talk about nimisha, kshana, muhurta, different pakshas, like 15 days, and so on. These are all from the human calculation perspective. So we saw the different divisions of time. Then we came down to this question, which is where we will start today, because this is a relating topic, Shloka 16 onwards, where Vidura inquires about those beyond what we see today, or beyond one kalpa. So there is the definition of kalpa that we have already had a brief touch on. So we'll actually see it again. I'll go back to Shubodhini if needed. Otherwise, we'll stick to Srimad Bhagavatam translations and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Right. So Srila Prabhupada, we'll start with the first shloka. I'll not read through many shlokas. Probably the first couple we can read. So Vidrovacha, Pitru Deva Manushyanam Ayuhu Param Idam Smritam Paramesham Gatim Achakshva Yesyuhu Kalpada Bahir Vidaha. Vidura said, I now understand the life duration of the residents of Pitak planets and the heavenly planets, as well as that of the human beings. Okay, that means Vidura is telling on behalf of us. We also should have ideally understood this. Now kindly inform me of the duration of life of those greatly learned living entities who are beyond the range of a kalpa. Okay, so just briefly, kalpa is 1 day of Brahma. That is 12 hours of Brahmaji. Okay, we are going to talk about the life of Brahma. So we'll talk there. So are there people who are in the kalpa range, who are beyond what we see? Because the Pitraloka, the Swargaloka, the human beings, they have a comparatively shorter duration of time. So in the 18th shloka, Maitreya said, Maitreya Vacha, Kritam Treta Dwaparanam Kalischeti Chaturyukam Divyair Dwadashabir Varshaihi Swadhanam Nirupitam. Maitreya said, O Vidura, the 4 millenniums are called the Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali Yuga. The aggregate number of years of all of these combined is equal to 12,000 years of the demigods. So the demigods, compared to us, have a longer duration of life. Okay, what is a Yuga Sandhya? We will see in a bit. So basically, our 1 year happens to be 1 day of Brahma. We'll probably cover it in the next shloka. We'll come there. The duration of Satya millennium. Okay, let me come back to this shloka. The duration of 1 day for the demigods is equal to 1 year for us. We saw Arjuna's story when we started today, right? Arjuna spent 4 days in the demigod area. When he comes back, 4 years of Vanvas for the Pandavas had already completed. Okay, now how do we understand this in simple? This is what we keep hearing from the senior Vaishnavas, from the Acharyas. How do we understand, let's say, a function or the festival that just recently happened, right? So like the Ganesh Chaturthi. So we celebrate Ganesh Chaturthi as a birthday of Ganeshji, but ideally the understanding is it's Ganesha's every morning. That means every 1 year for us is 1 day for Ganeshji, right? So every morning we give him bhoga, whatever we offer him. Basically, devotees offer him Jagannath Prasad, if at all they do at home. So it's every morning for him. It's not his birthday. For us, it's 1 year. For him, it is 1 day. That's how we understand. For the higher planetary system, like Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport here, 360 years of humankind, for us, 360 years is 1 year for the demigods. And obviously, demigods also live like that for 100 years of their time. For us, it looks long, but for them, it's just 100 years, like it is for us here. Okay. This calculation of Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali is equal to what we have already seen. So we can just quickly touch upon this. So the duration of Satya millennium equals 4800 years of the years of demigods. The duration of the Treta millennium is 3600 years of the demigods. The duration of Dwapara millennium equals 2400 years, and that of the Kali millennium is 1200 years of the demigods. Okay, so we know from the human calculation, right? So from our calculation, we have what we say Kali Yuga is 4,32,000 years, and so on. We move on, right? So Dwapar Yuga is 8 lakhs, and Treta Yuga is 12 lakhs 96,000 years, and Satya Yuga is 17 lakhs 28,000 years. Together, put all these four yugas make what? One Mahayuga or one Divya Yuga, which is what we interchangeably call, right? So this is from our perspective. From the demigod perspective, the duration of these yugas are a lot different from their perspective. There's a very nice transition period between the yugas. When the yuga changes to another yuga, there is this concept of yuga sandhya, the overlapping period. The transition period before and after every millennium, which are a few hundred years, as aforementioned, are known as yuga sandhyas, or the conjunctions of two millenniums. According to the expert astronomers, in those periods, all kinds of religious activities are performed. I'll probably mention something. I do not have a Shastrical reference to this because I couldn't find one. But in simple, Yuga Sandhya is between the two yugas. When there is an overlapping between the two yugas. The Treta is ending, the Dwapara is starting, or the Dwapara is ending and the Kali is starting. If you remember very famously, this is when one yuga is ending, the other yuga is starting. It's very conducive for doing a lot of religious activities. Ideally, if you look at Srimad Bhagavatam itself, this was spoken in the forest of Naimisharanya, right? For us, that's where we hear this, where the Shaunakadi rishis are actually discussing. This one happens on the cusp or on the Yuga Sandhyas, wherein the Dwapara Yuga is ending, Kali Yuga is going to be very bad, so let's do a 1,000-year yagna. Okay, that's an overlapping period. Actually, Lord Balramji visits, there's something that happens there, and the Kali Yuga is kicking in. That's that kind of a period. Okay, so learned experts here, it says astronomers, but all the learned sages and others, they actually use this period because it's very favorable for religious activities. O Vidura, in the Satya millennium, mankind properly and completely maintained the principles of religion, but in other millenniums, religion gradually decreased by one part as irreligion was proportionately admitted. So we all know this. This is again an important, simple concept that we have. We have studied about this in the 17th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, if you remember right. So Srila Prabhupada actually very clearly talks about the four legs of dharma, right? If you remember, tapas, saucha, daya, and satya, right? Which is tapas is austerity, saucha is cleanliness, daya is mercy, and we have satya, which is truthfulness. These are the four religious principles. So if you remember the analogy, if you remember that there is a bull that's standing on all four legs, in Satya Yuga, all four legs are working fine. Every yuga, there is a degradation of 1/4 of religion. In the Satya, at the end of Satya Yuga, the tapaha, the austerities, that one actually goes down. So the bull is now standing on three legs. In the next, obviously, being your Treta Yuga, end of Treta Yuga, the cleanliness part of it goes away. That means there is, so if you can relate back to the four religious principles that we actually follow, right? Cleanliness is basically you need to be away from any kind of man-woman illicit relationships, correct? So that goes away at the end of Treta Yuga. At the end of Dwapar Yuga, cleanliness, um, sorry, uh, Dwapar Yuga, we have, end of Dwapar Yuga, we have Daya that also goes away. So in Kali Yuga, we only have Satya that's left back. Okay, Daya is indicated by meat eating, mercy towards other living beings. So that is very common in Satya Yuga. Tapa is intoxication. So that also is very common. People, I mean, Friday night, Saturday night parties. That's a given. That's a social order. People are surprised how devotees spend their life in temple without actually going through these four things basically. right? And finally, truthfulness is a little bit remaining. We talk about gambling. So as Kali Yuga degrades and keeps going on, obviously this will also go, unfortunately, and that one leg in on which the dharma is standing, the bull dharma is standing, that will also be gone away. At the end of Kali Yuga, obviously, the re-establishment of dharma happens when the Lord, in the form of Kalki, comes and re-establish dharma, right? So that's what the Lord says. I will come back to re-establish dharma. So he comes back, and dharma is re-established. The Saptarishis come back, and then Satya Yuga kicks in again with all the religious principles and dharma coming in. Okay, so Vidura is being explained by Maitreya here in a very simple way, saying that look, um, every millennium there is a degradation of dharma happens. Why? Parallelly, irreligion increases. Now, in a simple way to understand for us is that am I participating in dharmic activity or in adharmic activity? Okay. Now, when we keep saying that no intoxication, no meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, so this is not because these are rules made by Manu, or these are the rules that we need to follow. It's simple. It re-establishes dharma. That means it is very conducive or very favorable for our spiritual life. So every time, knowingly or unknowingly, we break these religious principles. We spend, or rather we waste time in breaking any of these things. We need to be careful because we are actually pouring water on our spiritual progress, right? The fire of spiritual progress is watered down whenever we break this. So again, something to introspect, something that we can take back and look at it. Okay, am I breaking these religious principles? Because many initiated devotees, we all know that we have to follow these religious principles, religiously follow these principles, rather saying that okay, I'm not supposed to eat out, I'm not supposed to eat non-offered food, I'm not supposed to spend or waste time with so much nonsense that can happen over on the mobile phones and so on, right? So we know these things, not that we do not know. It is just that sometimes our wonderful friend the mind gives us saying that Are itna to karna hai, right? So and then we actually do it, and next day morning when we are chanting we are thinking I should not have done this, right? So again, be careful, because Kali Yuga is very, very, very powerful, and religion is become kind of normal. You go and tell people that okay, none of these, then they are very surprised that how can you even lead a life. And that's what is the Lord, the Acharya is expecting from us. Lead a life that is Krishna centered. If you want to do that, then obviously you'll not participate in this. Okay, let's move back to what we are discussing from the planetary systems and the universe. Okay, outside the three planetary system, which is Svarga, Martya, and Patala, the four yugas multiplied by 1000 comprise of one day on the planet of Brahma. A similar period comprises a night of Brahma in which the creator of the universe goes to sleep. So we know this. So Vidura's question was, can you tell me what happens in a kalpa beyond the kalpa? So Maitreya Muni is establishing what's a kalpa. So all these planetary systems that are there, we already saw there is four yugas, which together are called the Mahayuga. If you multiply this Mahayuga into 1000 times, that happens to be a day on the planet of Brahmaji. That means it's 12 hours for Brahma, and this period is called a Kalpa. Okay, so 12 hours of Brahma is 1000 Mahayugas for us. Okay, none of us obviously live that duration of life. Okay, and 12 hours of Brahma, Brahma's work is pretty difficult in that sense, right? So he has to do so much in 12 hours of his time. The entire creation goes through changes 1000 times of four yugas. Okay, Brahmaji is seeing all this. Then obviously 12 hours of his night, the opposite of that kalpa. The 12 hours is his night period, and and with all the work that he's done in the first 12 hours, he sleeps for the next 12 hours. Basically, it is the sleep time. They're equal. 12 hours. It's split as two halves. And this is just one day in Brahma. Okay, as we have seen earlier here, we will also see later how Brahmaji, once he starts creation at the beginning of his day, during the night of Brahma, there is a partial annihilation that happens. And then when Brahmaji wakes up in the morning, he starts creating again. That's his work. And he keeps doing the creation while the planetary systems have their own functionality and people with their own set of karmas take the different bodies. We'll see some of these as we continue. Okay. This is about one day of Brahma. We have just come to one day, one night of Brahma. At the end of Brahma's night, the creation of the three worlds begins again in the daytime of Brahma, and they continue to exist through the life duration of the 14 consecutive Manus or father of mankind. Now, so Brahmaji comes every day. He wakes up in the morning, so the creation again starts. So he very nicely starts creating, and he also starts giving responsibility to different people. One of the main important people is Manu. So we are entering the period of what we call as Manvantara. Okay, so if you remember, so the son of Brahma, Swayambhuva Manu, is said to be the first Manu. Then we have Chakshusha Manu. Today, when we do any kind of homas, yajnas, whatever we talk about, Vaivasvata Manu, R Manu, and so on, right? So this we are in the seventh Manu. So this Manu starts. So within one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus. Okay, so each Manu is approximately got about 71 and dot dot of this on all this Mahayugas, right? So we'll see that. So Brahmaji's this is Brahmaji's work. Every day morning he starts creating, and how does he put people depending on their karma, and then he gives responsibility. There are different people that come in. Each and every Manu enjoys a life of a little more than 71 sets of the 4 millennium, which is what I just said. The duration of Manu comprises of 71 sets of the 4 millenniums. Okay, that means 71, a little bit of 70 and over if you can split the 1000 Mahayugas. Okay, this is explained in Vishnu Purana. So the actual calculation is given by Srila Prabhupada in the purport, referring to other acharyas. So you can actually have a look there. Okay, so we have come down to the Manvantara. Okay, after the dissolution of each and every Manu, the next Manu comes in order, along with his descendants who rule over the different planets. Okay, there are two halves to this particular shloka's explanation. What is it that the Manu does? Okay, Manu is also said to be the father of mankind for us. Mankind, the word mankind, Manushya, comes from this word Manu. Manu sets the rules on how things should happen for a human being, for the mankind, basically. Because this is the karma bhumi, right? So there's a lot of karma input and output. So who sets the rule, or where does the rule come from? It is the Manusmriti or Manu's text, or the rules that are set by each and every Manu. So depending on the Manu, the rules can be a little changing a little here and there. Okay, fundamental rules remain the same. How devotional service, that will not change. uh, the different yoga systems, that will not change, but generally living, for example, this is a very common example that we see. So it is said that if you do not see, if you see someone rather with no tilak on the forehead, immediately you should go and take a bath, because you get contaminated. This is just one of the examples. Okay, and I mean, we in Kali Yuga obviously we cannot follow this, otherwise we'll just stay in bathrooms. We cannot come out of bathroom, right? So this is just one of the example that is there, saying that okay, everyone is expected to show that they are honoring the Lord. The lotus feet of the Lord is on their forehead. Okay, that comes from the rule that the Manu sets, and devotees or people generally have to follow this. Okay, so he has a set of rules, and he has a set of descendants where the progeny continues. So he continues to take care of the creation part. Okay, so when he comes with his descendants, his people, and that's how it's done. For more references, you can actually see the genealogical study that will come in the beginning of the fourth canto. At the end of this canto, where we'll talk about Kapil Dev's Shiksha, and when you go to the next one, how Swayambhu's Manu family is actually split. We'll actually see that there. Second half of this shloka talks about the seven famous sages, the demigods like Indra and their followers, such as the Gandharvas, all appear simultaneously with Manu. In fact, more details are there in the Shubhodhini, but simple, the Saptarishis, some of the prominent demigods like Indra, and some of the prominent like the Gandharvas, these people actually come with Manu. They do not wait for the Manu's creation to happen. He takes care of the rest of it. So it is said the demigods Indra um, uh, and the seven sages, these all appear simultaneously with Manu. Manu then has obviously his descendants who gradually appear. Okay, there are six elements of Manvantara, namely Manu, Manuputras, Devatas, Saptarishi, Sureshwara, and uh, Amshavatara. Okay, Amshavatara. Sorry, Amsha Avatara of the Lord. Okay, Canto 8 actually describes these six things that come in the Manvantara. So all 14 Manvantras within one kalpa or one day of Brahma have this detail. Okay, this is there. So now each Manvantara obviously also has the Lord coming in it, right? So we have discussed about the six categories of avatars. Okay, I've just opened something from the ISKCON Desire Tree. You can see Manvantara avatars. So Brahma's day, Chatur, so 14 planetary systems, so 14 periods that are being divided. So you can see who are all the 14 avatars that come in. Okay, we'll actually have some of the details in Bhagavatam as we continue to read. For example, Yagna comes right in the beginning. Yagna is the incarnation of the Lord. The Lord Himself actually comes in that Manvantara. He established the rules of Yagna. So we have Vibhu, we have so on. So we have Ajita, Vaikunta. So these are the 14 Manvantara avatars that actually come by. Okay, that happens in the day of Brahma. Let's continue. In the creation during Brahma's day, the three planetary systems, Varga, Martya, and Patala, revolve, and the inhabitants, including the lower animals, human beings, demigods, and pitas, appear and disappear in terms of their fruitive activities. Okay, so how do we get a body? How does Brahmaji decide who gets what body? How does uh, how do the Manu's dynasty continues? What happens to the Saptarishis? We all know that whenever we introduce, we say we are in this particular Gotra, we are in Achyuta Gotra, we are in Bharadvaja Gotra. How does those things happen? How do we appear in those places? Is because of whatever activities that we have done, whatever karma that we have gathered for ourselves. Okay, where are we placed when Brahmaji recreates? Are we placed in Swarga? Are we placed in the Bhumandala? Are we placed in the Patala Lokas? What happens when we are placed there? How we go about these things? All these are part of the creation. Okay, so we actually know all this. So we'll continue. In each and every change of Manu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears by manifesting his internal potency in different incarnation as Manu and others. Thus, he maintains the universe by discovered power. Like we said, the Manvantar avatar of the Lord comes here to help Manu re-establish religiosity. Wherever there is a need of religiosity, so that avatara comes and re-establishes it. So there are different types of avatars, different varieties of the avatara. What does the Manvantar avatara do is actually help Manu re-establish religion. When Manu creates, when there is any kind of irreligion, he comes and sets things up or helps Manu to work. At the end of the day, under the insignificant portion of the mode of darkness, the powerful manifestation of the universe merges in the darkness of night. By the influence of eternal time, the innumerable living entities remain merged in the dissolution and remain everything is silent. This is at the end of whose day? At the end of Brahmaji's day. So after the 12 hours, the kalpa is over. What happens? In simple, the of the 14 planetary systems, we know the 14 planetary systems, right? So of the 14 planetary systems, the bottom planetary systems from Patal Loka all the way to the Swarga Loka, everything is partially annihilated. It's a partial annihilation at the end of Brahmaji's day. A full annihilation happens at the end of Brahmaji's life after 100 years of Brahmaji. So there's a partial annihilation that happens. So what happens to all the living entities, all the souls there rather? They all go remain in the body of Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. Brahmaji also goes for sleep. So the top planetary system, which is Satyaloka, Janaloka, and Tapaloka, these three actually go into a more sedate state. There's no activity that happens. All of them are doing their own tapasya or nidra. We will actually see that a little further, how the sun and the moon have no effulgence. Nothing working happens. That means everything remains silent. All the souls are now taking rest. They spend so much of time. So one kalpa is one day of Brahma we have seen. Similarly is the night of Brahma. In that full night, everything is silent. So all these active souls, they are all silently remaining. There are details on how this partial annihilation happens, but it will also be covered later in the shlokas. So we will actually touch upon that when we go to the shlokas. Okay, we'll continue. When the night of Brahma ensues, all the three worlds are out of sight, and the sun and the moon are without glare, just as in the due course of an ordinary night. So first thing, it talks about mode of darkness here. Like in the night when we switch off everything, it's all dark. So we go to sleep, and next day when there is light, we wake up. Ideally, that's how the lifestyle should be. So it's the same thing that happens. So sun and the moon do not have any kind of an effulgence or a glare that is going to keep us active or awake. They are also kind of turned off. The devastation takes place due to the fire emanating from the mouth of Shankarshana, and thus great sages like Bruhu and other inhabitants of Maharloka transport themselves to Janaloka, being distressed by the warmth of the blazing fire which rages through the three worlds below. Okay, so if you remember who is Shankarshana, Lord Shankarshana appears as the hood at the bottom of the universe where the 14 planetary systems are held by him. In fact, all the planetary systems. So Lord Shankarshana starts emanating fire in his mouth. So from the bottom, if you look at the Patal Loka all the way till the Swarga Loka, everything is burnt up. So we have Bhu, Bhur, Swarga. So we'll remove the Patal Loka. We know all those. So Bhu Mandala, the Bhu Lokas, the Bhur Loka, and the Swarga Loka, all these are burnt up. The burning is so much that the next planetary system, which is Mahar Loka, it feels too much heat. So though they are qualified, they stay in Maharloka for a certain reason. They transport themselves to the Jana Loka. So the top three, Jana, Tapa, and Satya, like I said earlier, these will stay. Okay, these almost have the same duration of life as Satya Loka or the Brahmaji's time duration, which is one kalpa. So the bottom is burnt, Maharloka is emptied, everyone goes to the top three and stays there. Why is it burning? Because of Shankarshana, who is emanating fire from his mouth at the end of Brahmaji's day. Okay, so this is first the fire comes, right? So at the beginning of the devastation, all the seas overflow and the hurricane winds blow very violently. Thus the waves of sea become ferocious, and in no time at all, the three worlds are full of water. Okay, we saw there is fire. There is also water at the beginning of devastation. The first thing that we need to understand, see, there are so many, again, Hollywood movies that actually talk about this concept. I remember there was a movie long back called, I think it's called The Day After Tomorrow, wherein the scientist actually is explaining, saying that, you know what, a lot of these countries and the states cities are actually going to go underwater in a few hundred years, and then that happens in a couple of days. If you look at that, you will see basically it's in New York. It starts off with the entire Earth is, which is 70% water. Now the water is over flooding, and it's actually blowing and taking away the entire planet, taking away as in submerged in water. And this is what actually happened. Srila Prabhupada very nicely puts it here, saying that there is 36,000 human years wherein there is fire that's emanating. There's another 36,000 years of complete rain that is happening. Okay, there is no way to obviously survive. Okay, this 72,000 years is actually cleaning up this entire place, wiping out this entire place. Okay, and this is just the partial devastation of the three worlds. Okay, Patala, Bhuloka, and Swargaloka. These are the three. They talk about only these three. Okay, despite all this, people forget all these devastations of the world and think themselves happy in the material progress of the civilization. Okay, we have so much plans for ourselves, so much plans for our tomorrow, so much that we plan for future, so much that we plan for our children, what will happen to them. I should be like this, I should be like that. Okay, all this Srila Prabhupada says is Maya. That which will not that which will not give you any kind of excitement. You go and stand there, you will still have a problem, because the fundamental problems will continue to remain unless you become a devotee, where these things will not affect you. Okay, so anyway, going back to the creation, now the partial annihilation happens, so everything is silent, like we saw. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Lord, lies down in the water on the seat of Ananta with his eyes closed, and the inhabitants of Janaloka planets offer unto the Lord their glorious players with folded hands. So everyone is resting on Janatapa and Satyaloka. They're all praying to the Lord. This is Garbhodakashai Vishnu. He's lying on the Ananta and he's going through his Yoga Nidra. Okay, here specifically this word Yoga Nidra is used. So the Lord is actually going through his Yoga Nidra. We call it Yoga Nidra because it's not like our sleeping. It's not just Nidra. Lord's sleep is also a reality. His dream is also a reality. Like we have seen this in the past. We have heard about this in the past as well, wherein we are all part of the Lord's dream because his dream is real. It's not imaginary. Because we are part of that dream, we have a reality, or we have an existence. Okay, so while this is happening, while the Lord is just resting down with all the souls under his belly, Lord Brahmaji will use them to create later on. So he's enjoying his sleep. So all the qualified rishis who are in the higher planetary systems, here it talks about sages like Bhrigu Muni, they all give choicest of prayers. They glorify the Supreme Lord. This is what is happening in the transition period, right? So that continues. Does the process of exhaustion of the duration of life exist for every one of the living beings, including Lord Brahma? One's life endures for only 100 years in terms of the times in the different planets. Okay, like this, Lord Brahmaji also spends his 100 years. Now, one day is what we saw, one kalpa. Okay, one day. Then similarly is his night, that is his 24 hours. Okay, 12 plus 12. Like that, he stays for 30 days as 1 month. Like that, 12 months is a year. Like that, he stays for 100 years. Okay, the longest duration is 100 years. That belongs to Lord Brahma in this entire universe. Depending on which planetary system you're in, if you're in the uh, Indraloka planetary systems, the higher planetary systems, like we call it, the Swargaloka planetary systems, each day for them is 1 year, right? So 6 months into two, 6 months day, 6 months night. So our 6 months, that is one day for them. Like that, they live for 30 days, 1 month, 12 months is 1 year, and then into 100 years. Very similar. But their life duration is also very small. Our duration, though, doesn't even have a big existence. Correct? So, like that, each of them stay for only 100 years of their life. Now, there was someone when we were reading this, someone actually asked, but Prabhuji, we have people who are 105 years here, or 120 years, the longest living. No, it is your ideal life is 100 years, is what is mentioned. Can people stay beyond that? They can stay beyond that. Will Brahmaji stay beyond that? He doesn't want to. That's a different story. He will not, because the duration of time is a little different there. 100 years of their life is what is ideally spent. Human beings, as the yugas go by, the duration of life also reduces. So we might have heard that Hiranyakashipu did 60,000 years of meditation before he comes back. So these things are there, these things are staying as exceptions. So within the yugas also, there are different time systems that exist. On the Martya Loka, it's 100 years. They people who have access to different lokas or different accesses to different systems have different time zones also that work across yugas. The concept is a little different because the moment we start bringing in saying that in Ramayana it's a Lord Ram ruled for 10,000 years, then the concept here becomes a little different. Okay, so we'll stick to the time duration that is mentioned here. Okay, the 100 years of Brahma. Okay, now Brahmaji's 100 years we have come to. We have come from his one day, one night. Now we have come down all the way to the life of Brahma. At the end of his life, the entire universe is destroyed. Now, one day of Brahma, what happens? 100 years of Brahma, what happens? It's actually split into two halves. Okay, Prarartha is what we call it, right? So two halves. And the first half and the second half. The first half of duration of Brahmaji's life is already over, and the second half is now current. This is Maitreya telling to Vidura, this is still on, right? So Brahmaji is in his 51st year right now. Okay, when we started our Bhagavad Gita, we wanted to know how old is Brahmaji, because when we see photos and everything, he's got long beard, four heads. He looks very old person. That is from our perspective that we want to look, saying that he's a very old person, though he's staying right from the creation. Okay, Brahmaji is only 51 years old. Some of them are older than him in that sense, but he's in his 51st year. But his year is so long that we will have multiple generations going. He's in the second half of his life that he is going through, our current Brahma. In the beginning of the first year of Brahma's life, so this is talking about the different kalpas that come in, which are famous because when we do homas, yagnas, when we do different programs, we actually talk about different kalpas. In the beginning of the first half of Brahma's life, the millennium is called Brahma Kalpa, wherein Lord Brahma appeared. The birth of the Vedas was simultaneous with Lord Brahma. The first Kalpa is the Brahma Kalpa. This is according to the Padma Purana. Okay, the immediate Kalpa is also called the Padma Kalpa. There is an overlap. Some people talk about Padma Kalpa and Brahma Kalpa being the same. Some people talk about being two different days of Brahma. These are just days. The millennium which followed the first Brahma millennium is known as the Padma Kalpa, because in that millennium, the universal flower grew out of the navel reservoir of the water of the personality of Godhead. Okay, this is second day of Brahma's life. Brahma was not born as a child and he grew. Just continues. Okay, and then a descendant of the descendant of Bharata, the first millennium of the second half of Brahmaji's life is known as Varaha millennium, because the personality of God had appeared in that millennium as the hog incarnation. Okay, we have the Shweta Varaha Kalpa, sometimes popularly known as Varaha Kalpa, that comes in. Okay, this is according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The Brahma Kalpa in the beginning of the first half appears to be the Padma Kalpa. However, the first day in the second half is known as the Varaha Kalpa. These are the two things. That's why I said there's an overlap. We'll just stick to Srimad Bhagavatam. These are different days of Brahma, and each day is named. It's got a particular set of activities that the Lord does, because within one day of Brahma, we have different manvantras. So the Lord appears in different manvantras. The Lord also appears as Yuga avatars in different yugas, depending on how it is. So Brahmaji's 12 hours is pretty exciting. This one kalpa is got lot of activities, lot of incarnations, lot of things that happen. Brahmaji also gets bewildered. He does activities that are not favorable. He comes, he then gets punished. He learns. Everything happens in one day of Brahma. And again, his night is like that. So Brahmaji's life is also pretty exciting, like our life. Now he has a family life. He's got an office life. He has to do this. He has to do that. He's got children. Everything happens there. The duration of the two parts of Brahma's life, as above mentioned, is calculated to be equal to 1 nimisha, less than a second, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is unchanging and unlimited and is cause of all causes. He is Sarva Karana Karanam. Now we are going a little beyond the universe. What happens to the universe? So we all know about Karanodakshay Vishnu. If you can see my screen, you can see this photo where the Supreme Lord is Mahavishnu is lying down in the Karana ocean, and all these different bubbles are different Brahmandas, and with each breath they go in and the breath they come out from the different pores of his body. Okay, we have all heard about this already. The duration of one life of Brahma, I'm very sorry, no plan to open Facebook. The duration of one life of Brahma, 100 years of Brahma, which we said as 311 trillion, 40 billion years, according to us, which is huge. I mean, that itself looks so big, so eternal, that for the Supreme Lord is less than a minute, less than a nimisha. Okay. Oh, sorry, less than a second. The definitions of these we have already seen before we entered today's session. It is there in the previous shlokas. So you can see for the Lord, it is so insignificant is the life of Brahma, then what to talk about our life. So this is also explained by Lord Brahmaji himself in the Brahma Samhita. Okay. So we can read the purports, they're pretty nice. So take some time to read it. Now we'll go back to understanding if that duration of life of Brahma is so insignificant. How should we understand? In the last few shlokas, we have three more shlokas. We'll try to conclude with that. Eternal time is certainly the controller of different dimensions. From that of the atom up to the super division of the duration of Brahmaji's life. But nevertheless, it is controlled by the Supreme. Time can control only those who are bodily conscious, even up to the Satyaloka or the other higher planets of the universe. Okay, so everything from that smallest atom Anu to the duration of life of Brahma, when it comes to time duration, everything is under the control of the Supreme Lord. Supreme Lord never comes in the control of time. We have lot of leelas from in from Krishna book. If you understand, the Lord travels all the way from your Gokul or from your Nandagaon or your Vrindavan all the way to Barsana in a moment. It's evening. Let me jump across. Time cannot play an influence there. If you've heard, there are sages katha, or if you've heard that there are actually the rasa dance for that matter is across days of Brahma. Okay, so time cannot have any influence when the Lord is there. Time is controlled. Time can control only those who are in the bodily conscious. This definitely reminds me of how we can see Srila Prabhupada, or we can see some of the acharyas, including my spiritual master, His Holiness Jaipatak Swami Guru Maharaj. They're they're definitely not on the bodily level. Uh, Very recently, we were hearing this pastime, so I thought I should definitely tell it today. We were talking about how when Guru Maharaj was in the US trip recently, he was at one point in time he was not well. They were staying in one place. They had booked their tickets, or they had to actually travel to Atlanta in the evening, and morning is absolutely not well, and they decide, okay, we should probably drop the plan in the night, and they rush him to the hospital, and he's recovered. They're all taking care of him. They decide, okay, 3 4 more days he should not be having a hectic travel, and he's kind of not having full conscious. He's not fully conscious and everything. Then um, later in the day, he actually wakes up and says, "Why is everyone resting? Are we not supposed to go to Atlanta now?" And everyone there is like, "No, Guru Maharaj, you're supposed to take rest." It's like, "No, but devotees are waiting in Atlanta. I need to go there because I need to preach to them. I need to address them." So for people similarly, Srila Prabhupada's pastime, I mean, who can not glorify that, right? So what at his age of 70, what all he did, humanly not possible. Because the moment you start thinking, I'm so old, I'm 40, I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm 70, how can I travel, how can I spend so much time doing this, doing that, that itself, the time has started having influence on you. Maya takes over you. When you're spiritually conscious, when as we grow, each of us, as we grow in our spiritual lives, we need to understand that the more we spend time for the Lord, the lesser we are influenced by the Maya time that we are unfortunately looking down at. Yes, we need to have a regulated lifestyle. That's not how our acharyas lived, but maybe we cannot live that way. Not like Bhaktivinoda Thakura, who would sleep for 3 hours a day, or take short breaks, or like Srila Prabhupada, who would wake up in the night just to translate Srimad Bhagavatam. Even the way when he was so weak, he was holding on to his breath in Vrindavan, he was still translating. He said, "This is my service to my Guru. I had said I would do Srimad Bhagavatam translation." So he would use a dictaphone and he was still translating. So when they did so much for us, when they are doing so much for us, it becomes each and everyone's responsibility who are probably connected to this wonderful parampara, that we take time sincerely for spiritual activity. Look back and say, how much time am I wasting and how much time am I giving it for the Lord? Many times devotees are very happy saying that, okay, I've done my 16 rounds of japa. Okay, my japamala, you take a rest. You are done for the day. We'll meet you 22 hours later, right? So I'll again start my chanting. Till then, okay, I'm done with my spiritual activity for the day. Okay. So the Lord, like usually we say, the Lord doesn't look at how much you're giving him. He also looks at how much you are not giving, how much you are hiding from him. So when we take from our pocket and we always look, okay, 10 rupees, I'll put 500 rupees, obviously should be in my pocket. The Lord also looks at how much are you using for yourself, how much are you using in his service. And the biggest component, most sensitive component that we always have is the time. It's the same for us, same for each one of us. You can be Ambani, you can be a beggar in the street, you can be whoever you want. You can be a very senior devotee, you can be a very junior devotee, whoever you are. Your time for a day is the same. And the success of your day is how much time you have given to the Lord, not the other way around. Not saying that I've done so much for the day. Oh, अरे, हो गया आज का काम हो गया, right? So that's not how we should have that. That's not how our attitude should be. So look back, introspect, think about what you're doing. How much is it that you're giving for the Lord? How much is it that you're using for your own purpose, including your own sleep, and see if it is regulated enough. We all should be active when we come to a Bhagavatam class, when we are doing our chanting in the morning. That means that we need enough sleep. Srila Prabhupada says, yes, 6 hours of sleep is sufficient, or less than that is also okay sometimes. But if your age demands, if your health demands, use less time for sense gratification, more time for Krishna, or center our lives around Krishna. That's what we learn from here, because as and when we are beyond this bodily conception of life, we can understand the influence of time is lesser and lesser. Because whenever we go into an office, whenever we join a company, we are asked, what is your short-term vision? What is your long-term vision? Correct? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? These are questions that are usually asked, and we all have our own answers, some standard answers saying that, okay, I want to be this, I want to be that. Like that, you look at yourself and say, where should I be in 5 years from now in KC? Where should I be 1 year from now in KC? um, every Srila Prabhupada Vyas Puja festival, Anukul Keshav Prabhu, our temple president, always asks this question, saying that how many of you read all of Srila Prabhupada's books? How many of you have read the complete Leelamrita? How many of you can you raise your hand that reading Srimad Bhagavatam every day? And every year, I see that the number almost remains the same. Though there is a commitment that the devotees take that, yes, this year I will do, they cannot stick to their commitment because the seriousness of sticking to the commitment doesn't happen. I'm so happy with this Gita Gyan group. Some or other, they're making sure all of us get this opportunity to hear or read every day, at least for 15 minutes. So something like this, we all should make use of whatever little opportunity, whatever little option that we have to take up Krishna consciousness seriously. Every moment that we give here is adding to our eternal benefit. Okay, so we'll wrap up today's katha in probably in the next couple of shlokas. This phenomenal material world is expanded to a diameter of 4 billion miles as a combination of 8 material elements transformed into 16 further categories within and without as follows. You will see all this in the Sankhya philosophy study that will go on later. But basically, you know how the universe layers are created. So earth, water, fire, air, ether, each of them 10 times bigger than the previous one. The entire diameter of the universe is said to be 4 billion miles. Material science is still trying to figure out where they are. The layers of elements covering the universe are each 10 times thicker than the one before, and all the universes clustered together appear like an atom in a huge combination. When you look from outside, this entire universe looks like an atom. I think we have these photos, some of you might have seen. I'm also trying to see if you look at this particular photo without going into. So this is how the layers are mentioned. Very sorry for that. So each of these layers are mentioned like this. Bhumandala, this entire, uh, this one universe, right? So this one Brahma's Anda, the egg-shaped universe is this. The diameter of this is said to be that 4 billion miles, right? So that we saw in the previous shloka. So everything happens within this. So we have been seeing this, what happens within this. So Brahmaji's planet, the 14 planetary systems, Garbhodaksha Vishnu, the lotus coming out. We have seen this from an angle of time today, saying what happens in Brahmakalpa, Brahma is Padmakalpa, the lotus flower sprouts, each coming in and going out of the universes. Okay, the last shloka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is therefore said to be the original cause of all causes. Thus, the spiritual abode of Vishnu is eternal without a doubt, and it is also the abode of Mahavishnu, the origin of all manifestations. Again, we will again two parts to it, right? So Mahavishnu is the Karnodaksha Vishnu who is in the causal ocean, the Karana ocean, is resting in his yoga nidra. Okay, all this happens, everything from a creation perspective comes out. We saw that in the previous chapters, how Garbhodaksha Vishnu provides all these elements for creation. Brahmaji comes and starts creation, uh, right? So this is all there. But when we look at the eternal spiritual world, that is permanent. And it says Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. He is Sarva Karana Karanam, is the cause of all causes. He is the supreme personality of Godhead. He's got an eternal form. He's a Vigraha of Satchit Ananda. Okay, eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. He is Anadi, he doesn't have a beginning, and he is also Adi, or he is the origin of everything, and is known as Govinda. Okay, thus ends the Bhaktivedanta translations and purports of the third canto, 11th chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Calculation of Time from the Atom. Okay, very nice, interesting piece for devotees who are interested with Vedic cosmology. You will see a lot more when we come down to the fifth canto, a lot more technical details in the fifth canto. For devotees who are not too interested in this, don't worry, chant Hare Krishna, be happy. That's what we learn. Okay, I'll stop here. It's been a monologue for an hour already. So anyone has any questions, anyone wants to comment on this, add anything else, please go ahead. Okay, there's a question by Komala Mataji here. Let me just see the chat log. Okay. So it says, how was the geographical division during the other yugas? Is it only in Kali Yuga that the world is with so many countries and languages? What about in Satya, Treta, and Dwapar yugas? Well, the planets within the Earth is what you're asking. The planetary borders that we have today with so many countries is not the same. They were all split by different kingdoms. Okay, so there are a lot of mentions of different kingdoms in different yugas. There are khandas or islands that have submerged over a period of time. That's what we hear. From a simple Vedic perspective, the countries are not mentioned in its current state. Like I said, the kingdom. So we talk about Gandhari coming from Kandahar, right? So today's Kandahar, which is Afghanistan. So in Mahabharat, you saw that there are people in the Hastinapur in Delhi getting married to someone in Kandahar, and they coming in. Shakuni was from there. He had his different brothers and kings and all that. And when you talk about Chakravarti, they will have different places to go. And Fortunately, the way I understand, or the way we should look at this is this Bharat Bhumi that we have, the extended Bharat Khanda that we have here, that we speak about, is a place for your getting to your spiritual life. The other places that are usually mentioned, these are inhabited by lower forms. In that 400,000, that is 4 lakh species of human beings, the other forms had very aborigines or the caveman kind of a living that they have. That's why see, this comes in multiple pieces. If you talk about Parashuramji, when he chased away all the uh, uh, incapable kshatriyas, they all went to these different parts of the world. That's also mentioned, and they started whatever little with little knowledge that they have. So today also, if you look at different places outside the Asian continent, even within the Asian continent, if you go to Cambodia, there's the temple of Lord Vishnu thousands of years back and so on. Even outside the Asian continent, if you go, there are traces of Vedic knowledge that comes in there. There are practices that they do, which they have. So the countries do not exist in the current form. Okay, I'm hoping Komala Mataji that clears your question. I'll move on to Chetan Prabhu's question. If there are any questions, you can also unmute if that permission is there. Please feel free to comment if you want to. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, how we understand Lord is the cause of all causes? So this is a very simple, small question. Sarva Karana Karanam Brahmaji himself says, and today we have been talking about all about time and the entire creation, the entire elements provided for creation. Everything happens from Lord, the Supreme Lord, right? So we saw when we ended today's chapter, we saw how Karno Daksha Vishnu, his very name is Karana. Karana is cause. From him, all the universes are coming out, all the universes are going in. So he is the cause of that entire universal creation. Similarly, everything comes from him, is what we have already seen. So if there is a specific question, Chetan Prabhu, on is he the creation, is he the cause for this, is the cause for that, please let me know. But otherwise, uh, from all Shastric evidences, he is Sarva Karana Karanam. There are no two ways to it, and everyone agrees to it, right? So Lord Brahma, who is the secondary creator, okay, so he tells, I'm using all the ingredients from whatever is provided by the Lord. We saw that earlier in the third canto also, in the second canto also, we saw how the creation happened, all the elements, the basic elements. You remember the words of Pradhana, Ma, Tattva, Prakriti, all this comes in how Brahmaji uses, then he uses the soul, he creates the secondary part of it. So that's how it works. How is he right? How is he cause of all causes for our day-to-day activities? Look around, Prabhu. Whatever you do today, whatever are your activities, the provision of it is by the Supreme Lord. And we have our free will, we have our independence to do the activities that we want. And even when we do an activity, the good, the bad, whatever happens to that activity, it is given by the Lord. Right? The laws are set by the Lord. Okay, the karma, the rules of karma are set by the Lord. We are within that controlled element. Like how the government takes the cost, it becomes a cost for our day-to-day electricity, water, whatever we are doing, right? So similarly, the Lord is the provider of the sun, moon, the earth, water, fire, air, ether, through all the demigods. The functioning of our day-to-day, everything happens with the Lord. Remember, the moment the super soul leaves the body is just matter. Nothing happens. The soul cannot do anything without the super soul. He is the cause for you breathing, for your breathing. The fire in your body, the vayu in the air in the body, everything is provided by the Lord. Okay. Please remember this. You cannot move your hand, your head without the sanction of the Lord. Everything is sanctioned or approved by the Lord. So obviously the second part of this question would be, oh, then whatever I do wrong, the God is only. God does not interfere in your day-to-day activities. He gives you the provisions. How you want to use it is left to you. For example, the Lord is the one who provides a knife. So I can use that knife to chop the vegetables nicely, cook very nice bhoga for the Lord and offer it. Okay, that provision is all done by the Lord. I use the same knife to actually hurt someone. that is also something I've done. When I do a bhoga, offer it to the Lord, I get the spiritual credit. When I actually hit someone, I get the bad karma. The rule of getting the karma is set by the Lord. And this is where the demons come into picture, right? So when Hiranyaksha's story, sorry, Hiranyakashipu's story we see, immediately we come down to this point that, oh, he was hurting the brahmanas, the children, and the women. What was he trying to do? He was trying to reset these rules that were set by the Lord. You know what? We are supposed to respect the brahmana. If you hurt the brahmana, you get brahmahatya. You get, these are the karmas that you get because of brahmahatya. He said, no, I will change it. The moment he does that, the Lord comes, he breaks his head, right? So, or rather, he tears off his uh, what is open intestine surgery without anesthesia. He does that, right? So the Lord comes, and wherever there's religion that goes off, he reestablishes it. That's the rule that he sets. Okay. From our day-to-day activity perspective, our day has to be centered around the Lord's activities. That means I do my office activity, whatever comes out, I give it for the pleasure of the Lord. I take care of my family in a Krishna conscious way. My prasadam is Krishna conscious way. I wake up and do Mangalarti. I do my rounds. What my day-to-day activity is centered around the Lord, because the Lord enables my day-to-day activities. Okay, that's how we should understand Chetan Prabhu. I'm hoping that's clear. If you have more questions, feel free to let me know. You can put it in the chat, or you can give a call to any of us. We will help you out. Okay, we have a couple more minutes. Any more questions, comments? Anyone wants to add to whatever I said for the questions by Komala Mataji or Chetan Prabhu? Feel free. Okay, thank you, Chetan Prabhu. Okay, if everyone is fine, then we will stop here. Thank you so much. Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.